Hi, welcome to this episode of ComSpeak on Founder India. We have with us Chevelika. Chevelika is the Director of Brand and Communications at Indigo, India's leading airline. Thank you, Chavi, for joining us and spending this few moments with us, sharing with us your life's journey.
Thank you for having me, Amith.
It's a pleasure. So we'll start by asking you about how you got into corporate communications and public relations as a career. Tell us more about that story from the mid or late 90s.
Yeah, so I have to say, life, they say, is a venture of destiny and the karma that you do. So I think a part of it was karma. So I worked towards it. Post-schooling, post my graduation, I chose to get into my MBA Masters and went on to do advertising and communication management at NMIMS in Mumbai. So that was by choice. It was during that course when you do your internship and you realize, oh, whether it's advertising, do I want to get there or do I want to get into PR? My sort of leaning was towards PR. And one thing I had made clear to myself after working during the internship was I didn't want to go to an agency. Sorry, I don't mean anything else, but just the fact that I just didn't want to be on the agency side. I wanted to own the brand that I work for. So post finishing my master's, came back to Delhi. I chose not to take up an assignment in Mumbai. I had a slight incident with one of the agencies that I joined for a while. I've put it up on #MeToo, just for your knowledge, but I'm not going to talk about it here. So post that, I was still searching for my job and still wondering where I want to be. And there was this particular position that came up at Rolls-Royce. It wasn't really the communication position. It was actually, to be very upfront, was a position at the reception. And still, it was my first job. I was a fresher. I didn't know where I wanted to be. So my consultant told me, just go and try for this position. You never know what may come out. And God bless him, because I went for this. And within 5 minutes of my interview with the MD, he was like, "You're not here for this, are you?" I said, "No." And that's how it started. Like I said, that was destiny. Rolls-Royce at that time was looking for an in-house PR person. They had decided to bring the position in-house, and they were outsourcing the function till then. I had this great interaction with the MD at that time, Mr. Rod Williams, and he told me, "Give me a month's time and we'll come back to you." And that's how it started. Within a month, I had a call from them. I was flown to London to get my training, and that's where the journey began.
You said your leaning in college from an internship point of view was more PR. What led to that leaning to become public relations?
I think it was just about the human connect, if I may say so. I am, in a lot of ways, a people's person. It's something that I've always been. And when I was doing my internship, I realized, you kind of learn about yourself, that this is an aspect I'd like to draw on. And as they say, if you're doing something which is part of you and not just added on to you, you're better at it. So I think it's just...
Where was that internship that you did?
This was at Rediffusion in Delhi.
In Delhi, okay.
Yeah.
So now coming back to your first job you spoke of, what happened then? Tell us more about your career trajectory and what after Rolls-Royce until you reached Indigo.
Right. It's been 2 decades, a little over 2 decades. Started with, like I said, Rolls-Royce. I worked for them in India. And then I worked for them in UK for about a year. So I spent close to about 4 years with the organization. The last year was in UK, and post that, I still had a valid work visa. I was still single, and I think I was evaluating whether I want to settle in London for the rest of my life. It was just an option. So I jumped the bandwagon and I became a consultant with an organization which was a wholesaler into juices and snacks, and they were a B2B on the consumer space. So they were providing these pre-packaged products to a Marks and Spencer or a Holland and Barrett, which were then branded by those companies, and they were looking for some PR support because they were getting into new beverages. So I did that for a year, which was quite an interesting assignment. Learned my skills around international media. But it was enough to tell me that I didn't want to settle in that country. Not for anything else, but I think it was to do with the fact that my roots were here, my family was here. So I came back with the intention that the roots stay here, the branches can go anywhere. So I love to travel, but pretty sure that I don't want to leave this country and go anywhere else. So from there, I had a couple of stints with Airtel to begin with, which was on the customer communication side. So learning all about how to deal with customers. And of course, they were into getting into new territories at that time, like the Jaipur and Agras and Calcutta, etc.
Right.
So really, building that network for them from the customer side. And then I moved on to Avaya. Avaya, again, is a company that is into providing the back-end infrastructure solutions for connecting or connections, so unified telephony, IP telephony, call center solutions for companies, so B2B. I spent close to 7 years with them, and I think that was the organization where I moved from sort of mid-management to a senior management position. Started with them as the PR manager, and by the end of 5 years, I was leading the function, which was the head of Marcom and communications. And I moved from there to GE. GE was, again, this very large MNC set up in India, very interesting trajectory. Spent 2 years with them. I was, again, heading the advertising and communications for them, which was very interesting because GE set up their corporate office or a corporate layer to all the sort of businesses they have in India at that time. So GE it was for 2 years, and then I moved on to Spice Telecom, which is the umbrella company for Dr. B.K. Modi. But I moved into the corporate office, so it was telecom plus healthcare plus entertainment plus a bit of financial management. And then from there, I moved on to doing a consulting assignment for Uber. Uber, if everyone remembers, had this unfortunate case in 2014. So I was brought on to handle the crisis specifically for Uber. And from there, forayed to Nokia. I was heading their marketing and communications, which I again did for about 2.5 years. And then I went on to take a bit of a step back from an active corporate career. It was a bit of a situation that I had to deal with at home. So spent about 1.5 years consulting, and then from there came to Indigo just about a year ago. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Tell us, in these 20 years, what has been the most challenging moment for you? One challenging moment that stands out, that made you stronger, made you bolder. And then we'll talk of an interesting moment, which may not be challenging, but one that you remember and will remember forever. Yeah.
I have worked across a couple of companies, so every organization has had its great moments, but I've also had a couple of very challenging moments across, very difficult to choose which was the one. I think my current job involves a challenge every other day. With Indigo, where we are, you are the biggest boy in the market. So you're in your face and you're always at the receiving end of things. But having said that, I think it was in my first job where I would say I faced a bit of a tough time because, as I said, we were into providing engines for the defense vertical in the country. There was this particular episode which never ever got to the media, but it was a bit of a disaster that had struck. It happened in India. The way we landed up covering that in conjunction with the defense organization we were working at that time, it was a toughie. It was a real toughie. It could have been a bit of a in your face for the government at that time. It could have been, had it really gotten out, it could have been a big disaster for the company. So having to deal with that in a span of 24 hours, I can't get into more details, but just dealing with that.
Is there a crisis that was in the public domain and we know of that you worked on that you would like to talk of? Is there any in your last 20 years, maybe the present job or previously, a crisis that is really out there, it's not like it's confidential, that you think you really put your heart, might and soul to make it work for the brand? Is there one like that you can talk of?
I think a very recent one in my current organization, the issue between the promoters has all been all over the place as far as Indigo goes. Having said that, I think the best outcome of that has been that it has not affected business in any way. The business has gone on usual. In fact, we've been doing better than before. So it doesn't impact your business, but to manage that and ensuring that the people out there continue to trust you as their preferred travel partner, just building that momentum through all this has been a toughie. I think and if I may say, what we have done to do that is change the tone and tenor of the communication. Time and again, whenever there's been an emphasis on these on this promoter issue, and the media loves to speculate, and the media loves to.
No, media loves controversies.
They all
media
love
loves
controversy, and it's their job.
things that are not positive, because that's what
Absolutely.
sells. That's what human nature is, to read those things. Yeah.
I think we've always turned the conversation towards business, to say this is what we're doing. We're launching new destinations. We are now investing so much. We're bringing in new aircraft. You talk about the promoter. I've got 300 aircrafts to announce. You'll see what you want to talk about. So really, kind of, you know.
I also see, I occasionally fly your airline. I love the brand when it's up in the air. I've seen the in-flight magazine now has your name on it. It was not the case
Yes,
earlier.
that
So
was
there's
going to be
content
my
as
most
well.
cherished moment.
Yeah, so that's cool. Because I've been flying Indigo from the time they were launched, and there was never content in it beyond products being sold. But I think there's content now, and you have a say in it, which is interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting.
What excites you every morning to get up and go to work? What part of your current job makes it exciting, challenging for you to go to work
You
every
never
day?
know what's coming up. I mean, sometimes it's not get up and go to work. Sometimes you don't sleep through the night and go to work. So it's a very, very dynamic role at the moment.
You've been with the company for a little more than a year now. Have you had the time to take some time off to travel, fly to destinations beyond work? I know, I'm sure you fly on work, but have you had the time to do that?
I've actually not done that, not in this year at least. But then again, we've launched a lot of international destinations, you know, Vietnam, Myanmar, China. I've had the opportunity to travel to those areas or these destinations with the airline while on work, but still you do get some moments to yourself to explore the place.
So let's move on out from your work, your company for a moment. Let's talk about one campaign that another company did which you didn't work on, that really is something that inspires you and you say, wow, I wish I was part of that team. I wish I worked on that campaign. Is there one like that that stands out for you that is really inspiring, really something to look at as a case study?
Yes, Amith. I think this was in 2017 and Independence Day, when Bajaj Avenger launched a campaign called Ride Your Challenge. It was all about women riding, bikes and across different cities, different hours of the day, at night, and really making the most of it. And I think the thrust of the whole campaign was, your country will be free, something which Mahatma Gandhi has also said. Your country will really be free the day women can walk freely on the roads. And I think that resonated a lot with my sensibilities.
So we spoke of your work life. Let's go back to your childhood now. I know you mentioned that you did your MBA from Bombay. Tell us more about your schooling, your growing up years, and the college you went to, and things on those lines as well.
Sure. So I'm very much a Delhi person. I did my schooling with Mater Dei Convent. And then college was Sri Ram College, SRCC, the Delhi University, where I pursued economic honors. And from there, then it was Mumbai, and like I said, I did my master's in advertising and communication. And then, it was a good 2 years in Mumbai, but always a Delhi one, Delhi-eyed at heart. So came back and started with Rolls-Royce in Delhi. Spent a couple of years, like a year, a little over a year, actually 2 years in London in between. I've traveled across different countries. I've been across the geography, but mostly been based here.
Nice. What do you do for leisure? I mean, you have a crazy, hectic work life. How does Chevelika take time off to spend some time with yourself, family? What do you do?
With myself, I can tell you straight away, I'm a big fitness enthusiast. I'm a trained personal coach. It's not something I actively pursue, but I make sure to get that little time for myself every day to hit the gym or whatever physical activity that I want to do. So that's me, that's completely logged off. The hell can break loose and I would not be available at that for those particular hours. So that's something that I've made a part of my routine. With my family, it's more to do with, being at home. I think just all of us being at home, being able to sit across, watch Amazon or watch Netflix and, just spending time together. I've got 2 kids, my daughter who's just turning 14 and my son who's 9. So as a family, just love to be around at home, dinners, watching TV, just talking to each other. I think that's...
How do they cope with your hectic life in your current job, which is sometimes 24/7?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of thanks on that for my husband. He's a great support. His job allows him a little bit of flexibility. So he's kind of around for the kids while I'm kind of driving things at work. And I think it's a pact between both of us. When he's traveling, I'm at home. When I'm traveling, he's at home. So it kind of is a joint effort.
So coming back to the core of our interview, this interview is watched by all kinds of people, but our focus is younger people getting into the profession, people who are starting out, starting up. What's your advice to those youngsters in their 20s who who are getting into the art and science of public relations as a career choice, what should they look for, keep an eye on to make sure they excel in the career they choose?
You know, there is this particular person I really admire, Maya Angelou, and she once said this. You know, people will not remember what you did, people will not remember what you said, but people will remember how you made them feel. And I think that's my advice for every youngster out there, that when they come into this profession, which is an absolutely thriving, exciting, you know, profession to be in, and if you love being around people, this is the profession to be in. But when you come in with that mindset that when you're creating or making news or doing any sort of campaign, think about that human aspect, how you can make people feel. I think that's, if you can get that right, you would have done your job.
Interesting. Had you not chosen to be in corporate communications, had that leaning towards PR, and you went to do your MBA in marketing communications not happened, what would you have done? What would be the alternate career you would have chosen?
It's interesting you asked me that question. My first choice, and this was, you know, I was still in school, was I wanted to become an architect. So that was, you know, I was always good with my drawing and sort of a bit lent on the creative side.
So I'm sure you have many, many years of work ahead of you, and retirement is not even in the near future. But were you to retire, say 15, 20, 30 years from now, what would you do post-retirement? What's that dream that you've never been able to pursue because of being part of the crazy work life that you have? What would that be?
So I did tell you that I'm a big fitness enthusiast, right? So I think it's been on my mind, and maybe if it's not too late in life, I'd like to set up a sort of a holistic center for people where you talk about mind, body, soul wellness. So when I retire, if I retire or I'm out of active corporate life, that's what you'll see me doing somewhere. Maybe retire to the Rishikesh or whatever.
No, I think we've had an interesting conversation so far. Is there one campaign that you worked on that really stands out for you and say, wow, this is the campaign that I'll always go back to and say, I'm proud of working on that campaign, and tell us more about that.
Sure. So Amith, this was at my time with GE. There are a couple of things why that campaign stands out for me. One, because it is a campaign that was for the first time in the company's history created, strategized and executed locally anywhere in the world. Okay. So GE, like I told you at that time, they launched this India corporate layer over and above the 4 business pillars that they've been into, from energy to capital, etc. And they've been in it for about over a century. They wanted to really promote GE as a brand. What does GE stand for? So when I'd come in, we did a quick survey and we realized people, when you say, what is GE? And they would probably say, oh, it's energy, I think, or it's capital. But no one really knew what the company stood for. And I think the whole idea of promoting GE as an organization with a heart and soul. So we proposed an idea. I worked with the agency we had at that time, which was BBDO, to create an idea which was all about weaving GE into the traditional fabric of the country. And when I say fabric, it was literally fabric because we used traditional art and thread forms to depict the various aspects of GE. It was a very, very pretty campaign. You know, it was a beautiful, colorful campaign that we came out with. And it was the first time that was a 360 degree because it had an OOH, there was a TV commercial, there were, you know, we were dabbling with social media somewhat at that time because still early days, and a lot of print. And a lot of innovative execution in terms of, you know, doing jet wraps and lift wraps and even a building wrap. So we had the budgets, that was the good part. But it was the first time that we actually created a local campaign. The campaign went on to become a big success.
What was it called? Was there a name for the campaign?
It was called the GE Dream.
Okay. Is there one boss with whom you're still connected, one boss who really inspires you, something you learned from him or her that stands still strong for you today?
Sure. So this is Mr. Martin Brody. He was my direct line manager at Rolls-Royce. He's one of the most, you know, he's the calmest person I've ever come across in these 2 decades of my work experience. Hell would be breaking loose. Things would be collapsing, but with a clear head, how to focus, get to the core of the problem, don't let anything distract you, and then think of a solution. I always found him taking that approach, and I use that approach all the time. So that's one, and the second one is my current boss. Mr. William Bolton. I'm not saying just, whatever, but I think he's a fabulous guy. I am in Indigo actually because of him, because he was the first person who interviewed me and I was like, I could work with this man.
So now if you're ready, we'll move to the rapid fire. It was an enriching conversation with you thus far, and I'm sure this will be
Amith.
fun as well.
Let me get into my rapid fire mode.
Yes. 9 questions and 90 seconds to answer those.
Sure.
Let's start. Which is the most trusted brand for you other than the one you work for?
Oh, interesting. TripAdvisor.
Okay. Which is your one favorite book?
Alchemist, Paulo Coelho.
Okay. The best company you've worked for so far?
I'm really enjoying Indigo.
Okay. The best boss you ever had to work for?
So I just answer that. I think Mr. Martin Brody and Mr. William Bolter. So I can't decide.
Okay. Your professional role model beyond your bosses and beyond the colleagues you work with day in and day out. One professional role model that you look up to.
Mr. Ratan Tata.
An Indian communicator that you really admire.
Our ex-president, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Okay. A communications campaign you admire the most that you didn't work on, an outside campaign.
We talked about one earlier, but
one more.
IKEA. Their launch, the way they've come into the country and the way they've created their brand presence is phenomenal.
Right. Your favorite Indigo destination?
You know, surprisingly, of all the places, I really like Myanmar.
Okay.
And a very close second is Istanbul.
Okay. Thanks. And the last one. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Let me start with what I think or how I think. It would be curious and creative. You can take the who I am as a, an unrelentingly honest person and a connector.
Thank you. That was indeed a nice way to describe you, and I agree with all those as well. So that, my friends, was Chevelika, Director of Brand and Communications at Indigo. We had a great conversation with her. Thank you, Chavi, once again for being on this show. We appreciate it.